From the heart of Silicon Valley in the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, I am Sudipto Chatterjee and this is Economically Speaking with Atanu De. On Economically Speaking, we talk about economic topics and how they affect our world. So, Atanu, last time we were talking about nations and the GDPs and how the US has such a massive GDP and India does not. So we decided to talk about why certain nations or why certain countries are way more productive than others. Why is it that that leads to a higher GDP? What is the secret?
Yeah, Sudipto, that's a interesting point that we need to investigate. That exactly why are some people more productive than other people? So productive means they produce more, and one word that we frequently used in this connection is productivity. So what is productivity? Productivity is a measure of how much production takes place for a given amount of input. So if someone has a high productivity, it means that for the same amount of effort that they're putting in, they're producing a lot more. So higher productivity means with the same input, let's say labor input or the same amount of material input, if you get a higher output, that creates higher productivity. If a large number of people, which as an economy is fundamentally a large collection of people producing stuff, consuming stuff, and with the difference between production and consumption is what is savings, and that goes into investment.
Mm-hmm.
So at a very basic level, if a large number of people in an economy have higher productivity, it implies that they produce more, and that means more income. That means the GDP is higher. Now we'll have to ask the next question. What is it that increases productivity?
Right.
So let's consider a very simple example. If you want to dig a hole in the ground, you can do it with your bare hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's only so much you can do with your bare hands.
Yes.
What if you have a tool, a shovel available to you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The shovel is a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and that tool helps you increase your productivity. So the amount of tools that you have increases your productivity. And this tool is called capital. We'll use the word capital to refer to tools that we have for increasing our productivity. Now, for example, bare hands, you do so much. You can move so much earth. You can dig a hole only so big in, say, a day's work. If you had a shovel, you would do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a steam shovel, all these big earth-moving equipment, then you have more capital available to you. So your productivity goes up even more. So it's a question of how much capital is available to a worker that determines what the productivity of the person would be. So if to a people in an economy, a large amount of capital is available, then that increases the productivity of the people and therefore the GDP.
Just to be clear, we talked about wealth and the availability of resources before.
Yeah.
When you say capital, it is not the same thing as a resource. It's a tool and not something that is fundamentally occurring that we can make use of.
That's right. So resources are things that we use and to produce something else. So we can consider resources like, say, the raw materials, like metals and wood and glass. These are raw materials. Some of it has to be made, manufactured, and some which is available that we have to mine it and take it out of the ground and process it in some ways. So resources are there, and then there are tools. Tools are like a shovel or a hammer or a screwdriver or a lathe These are all tools. Now, these tools have to be made also. So eventually, it all works down to this. You have to have tools to do things effectively or efficiently. And the more tools you have at your disposal, the more capital you have at your disposal. So capital is all those things that we use in the process of making the things that we need. So machinery is capital. A building in which we sit and do our manufacturing or sit and work is capital. The computer that you use for doing all the things that you need to get done is capital. And these capital goods are not valued in themselves, but for the things that they allow us to do. So when you are looking for a drill, a drill is a tool. But you don't want the tool itself, you want what the drill allows you to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is important that capital is all those things that help us with our production of goods and services that we need, that we ultimately use.
Okay.
And
And
yeah, go ahead, please.
so, like, since you use the word capital, and I mean, I've seen the word capital being used in a lot of places, and almost always capital is used almost synonymously with money. And of course, there's human capital, etc., as well. Is there
Yeah.
a connection here that we're talking about?
Yeah. So when we say, let's say that we are starting a venture and we say we have a capital for that, we have venture capital, like $1 million has been given to us.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that we have the resources, the money to buy or to employ or to hire the tools that we need with it. So what are the inputs that we need for our production? So the inputs might be we need to hire two programmers, we need to rent an office, we need to buy the computers and connectivity that we need. So all the capital, when we say we refer to capital in terms of dollars, that's just a way of measuring how much tools we can eventually, tools and other inputs that we will be able to employ in our venture. So that is why when you hear about capital, it is always denominated in terms of dollars, because otherwise it will be kind of inconvenient to talk about, we need three
Mm-hmm.
programmers and two computers, etc., etc. So it is, the relationship is that money, or when we talk about money, it just represents a certain amount of capacity that we have to employ those inputs.
Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So stepping back for a bit, then we were talking about why certain people are more productive than others. Is it simply because they have better access to capital?
Yes, so one way to look upon it is like this. When you start to produce something, you look at, let's say, go back a few thousand years. People didn't have too many tools, so they had to do most of the things that they did by hand. And when they produce something and they don't consume all of the production, some of it can be saved. The difference between what you produce and what you consume is savings, and that savings can be invested. By investment, we mean we can make capital goods out of those things. And so we make capital goods. And because we have capital goods now available to us, we can then turn around and use those capital goods to increase our productivity. So your production increases, and it increases your consumption possibilities. You can consume more, and then when you consume more and your production is high, maybe you have more savings also, and that goes into creating more investment, which creates capital goods. So suppose in an economy, people are producing a lot of stuff, and then they are investing, and the investment is in terms of tools and buildings and roads. These are all useful for more productivity. So if you have enough people and resources to build nice roads and ports, then you will be able to have an efficient transportation system, which is required for production of goods and services. And so, therefore, the more capital goods you have available, the more it increases the opportunity of creating more capital goods. So if you start with all your computation being done by hand, and then at some point you have enough resources to make mechanical calculators, and then after you have done mechanical calculators, it increases your productivity, and then further down the road, you finally figure out how electronic computers can help you, and therefore a lot of electronic computers are made, and the more electronic computers you make, the more you have advanced the technology. So the word that I use right now is technology, and since you're in the technology sector, how would you define technology?
I would say things that make my life easier.
That is, through the use of technology your life gets easier. So we use the word technology all the time. And so now we need to try and get a basic definition of the word of what technology means.
Mhm.
So here's what an economist would define technology to be. I define technology as simply the word know-how. That is, how to do something is technology. So what happens is technology is not just the products that we see around us, a smartphone or an iPad, and so on. These are all products of technology. But what is technology itself? Technology is just know-how. Knowing how to do something is technology. A technology is an abstraction. That is how to do something. It's knowledge. It has something to do with knowledge. And the simplest technology that one can refer to is a recipe. A recipe is a technology. So what happens is, here are the ingredients. You have sugar and flour and eggs and other ingredients. Now, how do I put that and make a cake out of it? So it requires a recipe. It says first you do this, measure out that much of this, etc. Combine them in this sequence. Then you put it in an oven at this temperature for so much time, and then you get the cake made. So that is technology. You know how to make a cake. Now, this might look as if this is technology, then what about the smartphone? Everything that we have available in terms of tools and products is the consequence of some technology being applied, some recipe being applied. At the basic level, it's a set of recipes. And if you know the recipe, then you can make the thing that you're trying to make. So there's a
So,
recipe for making a cake, but the cake has ingredients. So like there is wheat, which you transform into flour. How do you grow wheat? That's technology. It's
mhm.
not high tech, but it's ancient technology. You take these seeds, plant it like this, then after so much time, take it out and get the seeds and thresh it. And after threshing, you do this and do that. A lot of things. A lot of people know how to do these things. It's know how. And then at the end, it gets combined into various things. So technology is know how. What is engineering?
So,
Engineering is how to build, the building of the thing itself. Like technology is how knowing how to do something, and the actual doing. But if we understand technology as recipes or knowing how to do something, then it simplifies a lot of our future discussions about things.
okay. So, just to be clear on the analogy we are following here, if I am making a cake, then the ingredients that I use are basically the just goods, or present stuff, so to say. The baking pan or the oven represent the capital or the capital goods. There is production happening in terms of the cake actually being baked, and the recipe and the knowledge that you need to heat up the oven to, let's say, 120 degrees centigrade and not 2000 degrees is technology.
So you're right. So we have inputs, the ingredients that go in making the cake. There's this technology which says how what you should do, what the recipe is, and then there is the capital goods. There's the oven. So that oven has to be there. If we don't have an oven, we won't be able to make the cake, even if we have the recipes and the ingredients. So all these things enter into the production, and your production process, then the output of the production process is the cake, which we can consume.
Right, right. And then if I sell the cake to somebody, then that's actually contributing to the GDP, which
Yeah. So when you sell the cake, you are exchanging something. So
Mhm.
we'll come to that as to the selling part later on, but we can investigate this technology bit a little more. The technology is basically recipes. Now, when I embody a recipe in something, that is the technological tool that we have available, the good technological good. So basically, a technological good like a phone, a smartphone, let's say, has embodied in it a lot of recipes. That is, each little bit of that phone has got components which were made using certain recipes and certain inputs. The glass screen, the Gorilla Glass that protects the thing, and you can touch screen and all that. That needs to, somebody knows how to do it. Somebody does. I don't know. Probably you don't know, but somebody does how to make the glass.
Mhm.
Somebody knows how to make those little chips. So it's all know-how. And know-how with capital goods. Like, we don't actually make an IC, a little things with our bare hands. There are machines that make these things. But the making of the machine has to be known to somebody, how to make the machine, each little part. So fundamentally, you go back down the chain, that long chain, you'll find that the end of the thing, there's just some stuff that is in the ground. That stuff has been transformed stage by stage through many people's knowledge into the product that we finally hold in our hands. It's the most amazing thing, isn't it?
It is amazing indeed. And I'm trying to think of any single item that I see around me as I sit right now. If I cannot trace its origins back to the earth in some way, shape, or form, and I don't think I can cite any single example.
Exactly right. See, the thing is, consider the Earth today with all its buildings and roads and people and computers and whatever, and take the Earth, say, 2 million years ago. We were not around, people were not around, there was nothing that we see. It was all nature and natural stuff.
Mhm.
The amount of stuff in the world has not changed. To first approximation, the amount of water, land, the stuff, the amount of atoms on Earth is exactly the same, but it has been transformed. We
Hmm.
are taking the stuff and transforming them, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. Most of the time for good, but we are transforming things, and it is human action that transform these things. Human actions and recipes are ideas. So ideas transform matter into something that is more useful in some sense to us. So that's the thing. It is inputs of raw material, mix them with ideas through a certain process, and you get stuff.
That is amazing. So, on that note, let's continue our discussion about technology, ideas, and recipes in our next episode. Thank you for your time, Aturu.
Okay, thanks. Great catching up with you, Sudipta, and we'll catch you the next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you again for listening to this very new podcast of ours. If you liked this episode, you should subscribe to the podcast. You can leave us comments on our Facebook page at facebook.com/economically speaking, or you can join the discussion at Twitter by following us. Our Twitter handle is at econspeaking. Each week, we chat with Atanu De on matters generally related to economics. This is Economically Speaking with your host Sudipto Chatterjee. Until next time, goodbye.